Hey everyone, this is Robby Besner, co-founder and device developer for Therasage, and today we have just a special edition of the Healthy Hotline, and I want to reintroduce you to a dear friend of mine, Dr. Nathan Bryan. He's got amazing accomplishments. I don't even have the time in today's interview to even go through all of them. But he's basically kind of the authority on nitric oxide, which is such an important supplement that our body would make naturally, but as we get older, we make less of it. So that makes the information that Dr. Bryan has to impart that much more. But what makes today extra special is that aside from all of the activities that he does in his normal daily routine, he's putting together and assembled the most amazing clinical trial to actually prove the efficacy of all the things that he does. It's the name of the trial is the African American COVID trial. And I really want to spend a few minutes, and the way, if you are interested in contributing as practitioners, either your clinic, your time to support this trial for a very important cause, you can contact the trial and Dr. Bryan at like the letter A, covidstudy.com. But let me just turn the screen and the mic over to Dr. Bryan and let him tell us in his own words exactly what he's looking to do, his goals with the trial, and what we hope to see from the trial.
Yeah, thank you, Robby. I appreciate the opportunity, and it's always good to see you. So yeah, we've been 20 years in the nitric oxide research, and over 170,000 papers published in the scientific literature. So what we've done this year, we've been interested in developing safe and effective nitric oxide therapeutics for many, many years. And then COVID hit last year and provided really a great opportunity to introduce our technology into this COVID pandemic. And what we've learned over the past really little over a year is that the people who do the poorest with COVID infection are the patients that have an insufficient production of nitric oxide. And so we submitted an investigational new drug application, an IND, to the FDA last year. We got that approved to move forward with a clinical trial. And so we're looking for African Americans 50 to 85 with at least one underlying comorbidity, whether that's high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, kidney disease, or a smoker that has recently been diagnosed with COVID within the past 72 hours. And then you qualify for our clinical trial. This is a double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial. We follow you for 30 days. And I think there's many important aspects to this study. Number one, it's the only drug trial dealing with the known health disparities of African Americans. For example, they have about a 3-time higher rate of infection, 3 to 4 times rate of higher hospitalization, and sometimes a 5 times higher rate of death from COVID. So we hope to impact this, and we know mechanistically exactly what's causing this rapid progression of disease and increased rate of infection in these patients. And it all revolves around the lack of production of nitric oxide. So this trial is designed to replete and restore nitric oxide early in the disease process to then prevent the rapid progression of disease. And I think, historically, I know historically that African Americans have been underrepresented in clinical trials. So this is very important that we get the information out there, that we have these patients participate, and also that we have really an opportunity to save millions of people's lives from COVID. We have people dying unnecessarily from COVID when we know unequivocally that we can impact the rapid progression of disease and keep these patients out of the hospital. So our challenge has been getting these patients, getting the information out to the patients, getting them to enroll in the study, and then complete the study. And when you get diagnosed with COVID, especially if you have a chronic underlying disease, it's very frightening. And most doctors will send the patients home, give them whatever the standard of care may be at that particular time, and then they're on their own. So what we've done in this clinical trial is we send them home with a pulse oximeter so they can actually monitor their blood oxygen levels. And that's really the of COVID, is when your blood oxygen levels get low and you get silent hypoxemia, get end organ damage, and people expire due to that. So we send you home with a pulse oximeter. You know in real time what your blood oxygen levels are, and then we call you 3 to 4 times a week to check on you for 30 days. to make sure that you're doing well, you're taking your study medication, and just to provide some oversight and some telemedicine counseling and advice on how you're doing in the trial. And the other important thing is we pay each patient $100 for completing the trial. So our objective is to complete this clinical study to where we can get the data, submit a drug application, hopefully get this drug approved, to where we can prevent these unnecessary hospitalizations, admissions in the ICU, and deaths from COVID. And so we're looking for clinics. If you're a practitioner and you're doing rapid screening for COVID patients, that's a great, really a venue for us to introduce the clinical trial, because you have those patients, you can consent them, enroll them in the clinical trial, and then we do all the heavy lifting from there. Or if you're in a community where there's a lot of African Americans with COVID, reach out to us. We can do targeted marketing commercials and educate the community on this important study.
So even though, the scope of the trial is somewhat narrow, you picked a certain demographic, you have certain criteria, really the results is really much broader than that, because even though this community is underserved in many ways and certainly has great effects, which you've articulated, the benefits that all of us can gain from this trial are just incredible. And just spend a minute with us for the people that are just tuning in, because the doctors and maybe even the patients that could participate in this trial, there's a direct correlation between the production of nitric oxide and the blood oxygenation level. And so being an expert on that, can you just spend a minute and just make that connection for us a little bit more clear?
Sure. So nitric oxide is a molecule, it's a gas that's produced by the lining of the blood vessels that basically dilates the blood vessels and improves oxygen delivery to every tissue and cell in the body. But it's also what controls the release of oxygen from hemoglobin in the periphery. So if you don't have nitric oxide production, you become hypoxic, you don't get oxygen delivered. And it really explains all the health disparities of African Americans, and really explains that there's symptoms like high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, kidney disease. Every single chronic human disease is related to a loss of nitric oxide production. And let me go back to this trial, because you made a very good point. This isn't, most people recover from COVID. I mean, the numbers don't lie. We got a 99.97% survival rate in the general population. So if we were to design a trial to give this medication to the general public, you would have to enroll 80 to 90,000 patients to see just a small improvement in rates of hospitalization. What we did is we went after the most susceptible, high-risk patients, so that we don't need a whole lot of patients, because we're looking to reduce this. So if this drug works in the most susceptible at-risk population, the African Americans 50 to 85 with one underlying comorbidity, then it's going to work much better in the general population. Nitric oxide doesn't see race or color. It's a physiological mediator that works the same in every single person.
So just like COVID is not discriminating by race or by how affluent you are or anything like that, it just crosses all barriers. The same is the remedy. And, as one of the causations being the lack of your blood's ability to hold on to oxygen, which creates that whole, negative spin, you've actually got the potential of the remedy right in our hands. In your hands and so forth, and now we just need to go through the process. And so we really are reaching out to everybody that's watching this this interview to just spend a few minutes, see if you have someone that's close to you that could contribute their time and or even themselves to help further this study along, so we can get the trial finished, and then the results published, and then come up with the remedies that's so greatly needed in today's world. So,
you make a very good point, Robby. And I think another important component of this is nitric oxide is known to be antiviral. So when you get exposed to COVID, our immune system typically is activated, and we go and we generate a lot of nitric oxide. We shut down virus replication. But in the patients that are nitric oxide deficient, their immune system doesn't get that response, so they don't make any nitric oxide to prevent the virus replication. So the interesting thing about this particular drug therapy is that we generate enough nitric oxide to prevent the COVID virus replication, and that prevents the rapid progression of disease. And the other important thing I think is, when we look at safety, safety is always the forefront of what we do. And most drug therapies are inhibitors of certain biochemical reactions in the body. So there's always side effects, unintended side effects. This drug therapy in our philosophy has been much different. We don't want to inhibit what the body is typically designed to do. What we do is replete a missing molecule. So this is a restorative therapy. It's not an inhibitor of any reaction. And when you do that, when you understand the disease mechanism to the extent that you can then develop rational therapies, that's what we do. If your body is missing, it's a prime example of like vitamin D. If your body's deficient in vitamin D, what do? You take vitamin D. If your body's deficient in nitric oxide, what do? You replete and restore the production of nitric oxide. And that's the basis for this therapy. Extremely safe, and we're finding out that it's very efficacious in COVID patients. So I think that's very important, because people always think, sign me up for a clinical trial where there's unknown safety. That's not the case in this particular drug trial.
Wow. Well, boy, you've done so many amazing things in your short time on Earth. It just amazes me how every time I meet with you, you keep raising the bar. And this study is probably, from my heart and soul, this is probably one of the best contributions that you've made to science and to medicine and to the community and to the population at the US. And hopefully the rest of the world will take notice and see this as being a totally great, viable way to maintain optimal health, and certainly, fight back and recruit really all of our natural resources that the Lord's given us to stay healthy and stay in great shape. So Dr. Bryan, thank you for your time. Thank you for your dedication. And certainly thank you for the study, and for all of you guys watching out there. Let's pitch in. If you got a clinic, if you got a flow, if you got the criteria, if you're an individual and you can contribute to make this trial happen, let's make it happen, because it's so, so important. Thanks again.
Thank you, Robby. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Healthy Hotline today, hosted by Robby Besner. To learn more about Therasage, as well as get a discount on your next purchase for being a listener of the show, go to Therasage.com and enter Healthy Hotline at checkout. That's one word, Healthy Hotline, to get a special discount on your next Therasage purchase. Subscribe to the Healthy Hotline on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, and we'll see you in the next episode.